Test, test. Can you hear me? All right. Boy, this is a lousy camera. And I think I don't know about my flashing light. Is that a good idea or a bad idea? Let's see. I need a better computer with a better camera on it. That's what I think. All right. Are there actually people watching this? Welcome to my new show, The Daily Faded, where daily I am going to get faded and talk about news and politics. Hit the thumbs up button if you're watching. It looks like 2 people are watching. Oh, it looks like 3 people are watching. If 3 people could hit the thumbs up button. And there's a lot to talk about. But before we get into our politics, I have a new strain that I just picked up today. Normally, I am much more of a flower guy. But lately, I have been vaping. I actually just got my first battery. Shocking, I know. As a stoner of a good 30 years of smoking weed, I should have had a battery long before this. Anyway, this is Gelato. It's an indica by Select. Anyway, this is the Daily Faded. And what we're going to be doing here every night around this time is we're going to smoke some weed and we're going to talk about politics. So let me turn this thing on. Yes, there will be pauses. Now, this is a brand new strain to me, and I have to say I like it. I like the taste of it quite a bit because you can put something in the chat, in the live chat, just to let you know for future viewing purposes. So, like if you were in the live chat right now, I could ask, should we put the disco light on or should we keep the disco light off? These are things that I have to try and figure out. Sorry, I had to get the dog. It's going to be a constant problem. All right. Now, I swear to God, this is actually going to become entertaining. I swear to God, I have interesting things to say. I've said it already, but I'll say it again. This is The Daily Faded. I like to invite all of my viewers, all 3 of them, to get faded daily with The Daily Faded. Ludwig. Sorry, dog alert. I know this is getting off to a slow start, but I appreciate your patience. Okay, sorry about that. The dog, we took care of the dog. I was just saying I really like the taste of this gelato, which is distributed by Select. I got it at my local dispensary where I've been going since they legalized medicinal marijuana years and years ago here in LA. It's got it's got a nice taste to it. A lot of times I find when I'm vaping, the flavored vapes, I mean, they're fine, but I miss that taste. I want that taste. I want it to taste like sophomore year of college. You know, it's kind of sad and desperate, isn't it? Thinking back to sophomore year of college. So look, the big The big news is that Bernie won Nevada. Nevada. I think that obviously there's already been a ton reported about this, a ton has been said about it. I think the margin is really the most important thing, and I'm not the most original person for saying that. But that 27-point margin he put up on Joe Biden, that really sends a message to the Democratic Party, because there was no polling that would indicate that he was going to score so high in the Nevada caucuses. There was no polling that had him that high. So the fact that he did what many of us burners know he does, which is he outperformed his polling, just goes to show you that our beliefs about turning out the vote, getting more people out to vote, and expanding the electorate and getting that electorate to vote for Bernie Sanders is something that we can actually do. So I think there was some interesting proof of that in the results from Saturday. The other thing that I think is absolutely amazing is that Bernie won every demographic, which again goes to this constant conversation that we're having with people about expand the constant right behind Joe Biden on that. So what it really suggests is that in this candidate that people say is divisive is in fact a uniter. And what else is a great uniter? Weed. There's something I'd love to know from you guys, which is when you smoke, do you hold it in for a long time to let that THC mingle with the blood in your lungs and get it pulsing through your system? Or do you just breathe it in and cough a ton? Anyway, so this is the Daily Faded. And this all started on one of my best friend's porches last year, where I was at his house almost every night. And we would sit out on the porch and smoke and talk politics. Except, of course, I was the only one smoking. See, that was just holding it in a little bit there. So it really looks like Bernie Sanders has the ability, there is the possibility coming out of Nevada that he can really reach out to more people than it seemed like his coalition was made by at least 10%. Even if you give him a small portion of that, say he's going to overperform his polls by half of that, by 5%, he's neck and neck with Joe Biden in South Carolina. If he, candidate, has ever done that in either the Republican Party or the Democratic Party, I mean, if that's not the road to a great destiny, if that's not the start of something big, I don't know what is. And I was, there was a lot, I'm not going to comment on the mainstream media and the meltdown that they had on Saturday. Okay, I'll comment on it a little bit. Chris Matthews is insane. Hey, I don't want to hate on anybody, but the guy has lost his mind. I'm sure you've seen what he said about the Nazis crossing the Maginot Line and comparing the Bernie to the Nazis. To Chris Matthews' credit, he did start his show tonight with an apology. And it seemed like a very heartfelt, sincere, and personal apology. So I appreciated that, because I definitely think comparing the first potential Jewish president to Nazis, not a good idea, especially when he lost family in the Holocaust. Not a good look, MSNBC. But other things that I have been thinking about off of Nevada, and I had to make some notes. You might see me checking my notes from time to time. That's because the more I smoke, the less I can remember. And so I have to have notes. And this was actually the whole thing with my buddy, is that during the day I would make notes because I'm a news junkie and I follow the news all day long. But I had to make notes because the more stoned I got, the harder it was to remember, oh, this thing I wanted talk to you about. Look, one thing we have to talk about from going back to before Nevada, again, this is my first live stream, so it's my first chance to really talk about it, is that last question at the Democratic debate was absolutely ridiculous. The fact that Bernie Sanders was the only person to stand up there and say, I believe in democracy. I believe that the person who gets the most votes wins. That the fact that the other 5 candidates said no, go through whatever parliamentary games we want to go through. In essence, they said, no, it's okay if the superdelegates steal it. That's just, that hurt. That hurt. You know, like, God damn it. You've been telling us for 3 years, 4 years. See, I'm starting to get a little stoned, so it might get weird here. But, oh, by the way, if you're watching, share this stream on your social media. I would really appreciate it. And if you could hit the like button, I'm trying to get some likes because this is my first video. This is my first live stream. Anyway, getting back to where I was. Where the fuck was I? Right. So that last question about, you know, basically should superdelegates be able to do their thing? All of them betrayed themselves as just career politicians who have, who put, you know, getting ahead of everything else. They don't value democracy. They're not about democracy. I just think that that's going to stick. I'm going to remember that. I'm going to remember that moment. More so than anything else, I think I'll remember that moment more than any other moment throughout the Democratic debates from 2020. And there have been some great moments. Kamala Harris attacking Joe Biden, that was awesome. Elizabeth Warren attacking Mike Bloomberg, awesome. Some great stuff. Julian Castro had a couple of good moments. Beto had a couple of good moments, you know, but the one I'm going to remember is everyone on stage admitting that they don't care about democracy, that they don't think the person who got the most votes should win. So that's just really, really disheartening. Oh, by the way, click on subscribe, please, because I need some subscribers. Anyway, now I wanted to talk a little bit. Let me smoke a little bit more because this is going to get deep. I have some ideas about criminal justice. So I have to take a toke before I talk about criminal justice. I'm not holding it in quite as long as I usually do because that's got to be boring to watch. Anyway, there was an interesting op-ed in the New York Times today. And that is not something that I often say because I think most of what appears on the opinion pages of the New York Times is trash. I mean, yeah, but you know, the op-eds, whatever you call them, the people who don't write every week, they can be really interesting. So there was, see, I'm getting too stoned now to talk about politics. This op-ed was written by Cass R. Sunstein of Harvard University. And in the op-ed, he made the argument that Congress needs to make the Justice Department more independent from the president. And I thought it was a really interesting argument. And he pointed out that there are several other branches of the government that the president doesn't have direct control over. He gets to nominate the head of the division or the head of the department, but he doesn't have direct control and can't give them orders, like the Federal Reserve. He can't just go tell the Fed that they need to raise interest rates, although Donald Trump just tells them lower interest rates and then they do it. So, but it's not supposed to work that way. So since 1935, the Supreme Court has allowed for these independent branches within the executive branch to exist, and to be able to do their thing separate from the power of the president. And it's held up time and time again in court. But I still worry that if they pass a piece of legislation doing that, then you're only one more bad piece of legislation away from undoing it. So I think we ought to turn the Department of Justice into I'm just going to say it. I mean, it sounds crazy, but a fourth branch of government. I think we need a constitutional amendment that lays out what the Justice Department is, what its constitutional roles are, its constitutional duties. And I think that every 4 years when we elect the president, we should also elect the Attorney General. We do at the state level. The governor doesn't appoint the Attorney General, I don't think, in any state in America. You could fact check me on that if you wanted to. But, you know, you could even make an argument that we should vote for Secretary of State, although I'm not going to make that argument right now. I'm not that radical. Oh, by the way, so my politics are a little bit on the radical side. Please keep coming back, and you will, you'll get to appreciate that. Anyway, I just thought it was a really good op-ed. I recommend that you check it out in today's New York Times. And think about that. If we had a completely independent Attorney General who answered to the people, who could be impeached, but who delivered justice without the command or the consent of the president. I just think it's what we need right now, because look at what the problem is that we have with William Barr. It's ridiculous. So I think that could be potentially vital reform for our democracy. I don't know how to have a guest on the show. I don't know how to do that thing where you like do the Skype and you have two people in the frame. But when I figure that out, my first guest on this show is going to be Astra Taylor, who wrote the book Democracy May Not Exist, but We'll Miss It When It's Gone. Because it really opened my eyes to kind of what democracy is, and what we mean when we say democracy. Who do we exclude from our democracy? Who do we include in our democracy? You know, that's why, like, I really love Bernie Sanders' position on felons being able to vote, convicted felons doing time being able to vote. Because if you think about it, the convict is the lowest rung of society. They are the most disempowered, disenfranchised group in society. And people's punishment, in my humble opinion, should be that this does get harder the more I smoke. It does get harder. See that? I just completely forgot what I was talking about. All right. God damn it. Well, I do know what I was going to transition to, which is I'm going to talk a lot about constitutional amendments, because I think the Constitution needs a lot of work. You know, there are a lot of constitutions that were written in the last 100 years. Think France, Germany, Japan, South Korea, that guarantee their people a lot more rights than our Constitution guarantees us. And, you know, the Japanese Constitution guarantees healthcare to every citizen. I think that should be a constitutional right. And I really think, you know, we see what happened. The reason we really need to be thinking in terms of constitutional amendments is because if you look at the history, you see what happens after the New Deal. The communists and the socialists are marginalized, and the unions are strong for a couple of decades, but then they start to lose their strength, and then you get legislation passed like Taft-Hartley, which reduces union membership, reduces union bargaining power, and the power in the plutocracy, the power of really capital, which is what it's the big pile of money, right? It's the billions and billions and trillions of dollars that the 1% have. This is going to be problematic because now I just forgot what I was saying. Tomorrow night, I'll be back and I will be smoking less. Anyway, right. I was talking about what happened to the New Deal. See, I told you I could do it. I told you, I'm not that stoned. Over the decades, all of the gains of the New Deal were slowly taken away. And they were, if they weren't taken away, then they were reduced greatly. Social Security should have been expanded time and time and time again. And neither the Democrats nor the Republicans have really done anything about expanding Social Security. There are people living on Social Security, and it's not enough to live on. It just isn't, you know? Yes. So, there's one last thing tonight. Oh, I also, so check this out. Yeah, I'm really high. I'm very high. I'm more high than I thought I was going to be. Anyway, so this is I'm going to do this every day, my daily fail. Today, the daily fail goes to Adrian Elrod on Morning Joe. Now, 3 years from now, when I'm doing something like this, I will insert the video and show it to you, like all the cool kids do. I don't know how to do that yet. And given that I do this stoned, it's going to take me a while to learn how to do that. Anyway, just imagine you're seeing this video of Adrian Elrod on Morning Joe, and she's talking about how the moderates all need to drop out in order to consolidate a vote to beat Bernie Sanders. And she said that, you know, if that happened, Bernie Sanders would really be threatened by the alternate frontrunner. And I was like, alternate frontrunner? How the fuck can you have an alternate How the fuck can you have an alternate frontrunner? You're either the frontrunner or you're not the frontrunner. You can't be an alternate frontrunner. And just by saying it, it's almost like it puts it out into the ether. It puts it out into the universe. You know, like maybe someone will start tweeting about the alternate frontrunner, as if it's a thing. And there will be people who will be like, "Oh, I have to vote for Pete Buttigieg because he's the alternate frontrunner." But there's no such thing as an alternate frontrunner. It's just completely made up. So Adrian Elrod on MSNBC on Morning Joe, she gets the daily fail today. Oh, and one other thing I wanted to talk about. By the way, please follow me on Twitter at @the_Hetz. That's my name, by the way. Hetz, or the Hetz, as in the one and only. I'm not smoking anymore this show. Follow me on Twitter And go to my Patreon account because I don't have any patrons yet. It's patreon.com/the Daily Faded. Get faded daily with the Daily Faded. There's one other thing I wanted to talk about. Kyle Kalinske. Again, now I would insert video. Kyle Kalinske did a video today. And I think it was today. Maybe it was yesterday. I don't know. I have no idea. But it was a video where he showed a Biden ad that attacks Bloomberg. And it's really a terrific ad. It's a great ad. And Kyle was talking about how, anyway, the whole thing is like text bubbles, and like a chat between people, and every now and then a video of Bloomberg coming and saying something racist will come up. It's scrolling up. And it's funny, and it has a punchline at the end, and it's great. And you really feel like, yeah, Bloomberg's a piece of shit. But then at the very end, it's like Biden 2020, and it's like colorful letters on a black field, and it's like shaking, and it's like dubstep is playing, and it's like boom, 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 boom. And it was like, what? And I was just shocked. Yeah, I'm calling out Kyle Kalinske. I know that, Kyle, you just passed 800,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I don't have any yet, but I'm calling you out because you talked about how great the ad was, and you were completely right about that. I totally agree. But Biden is using dubstep in his campaign ads. How funny is that? I mean, is that what you think when you think dubstep? You think Joe Biden? Does he dance to dubstep with corn pop? Oh man, that was and like, as good as the attack ad was, and as spot on as Kyle was about that, I really think he missed the story. The story was the dubstep. Yeah. All right. So guys, I'm gonna wrap it up. I have a ton of stuff that I want to talk about. And some of it is going to be kind of policy wonkish because I like to try and get in the weeds a little bit. But then I am stoned while I'm doing this, so the weeds are going to get weedy, and it may get really difficult. But we'll find the right balance, I'm sure. But then I've got some other things that I want to talk about. Like, this is just a teaser. Maybe we'll talk about this tomorrow night. What if the Bernie Sanders movement is a cult? Something to think about. Something to think about. So I will leave you with that. Thank you guys for watching. There's actually 4 people watching, and I only sent the link to 3 people. So whoever that 4th person is, I'm going to smoke for you right now. And I'm going to be back on tomorrow night at 11 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Pacific. And I'm going to get faded on the Daily Faded. Peace out, you guys. Thanks for watching. Good night.